first of all, we have to discard the fact that we can do everything without the scripture. So Prabhupada often quotes the 4 defects of the human being, making mistakes, illusion, etc. So there's 4 distinct things. Of course, we can probably get more faults in our perceptions, but these are some of the main ones. So one of them is called Brahm, which literally means making mistakes. So the famous example is the rope and the snake. We see a rope and we think it is a snake. Or we think there's a rope and it is a snake or whatever. We do the opposite as well. So due to our imperfect vision, we think something is something else. That is called Brahm. So that is one mistake we can make. And nobody is free from that mistake also. Karanapatava, which means the limitation of our senses. So, we have limitation according to how far we can see. After a certain distance, even a person with good eyes cannot see properly. If it's 50 miles away, how much you can see of an object and get its details? Not much. If something is too close or very small, you cannot also see it. So, of course, often in ancient times, when they would examine things like gems, for instance, how to figure out what is a pure gem. So they could always look at it with their eyes, and according to that, they just judge the color and see if there's a little crack here, a little spot. So according to visibility, that was the extent of purity. Now we have microscopes, so you can look at the gem with a microscope and see little dots there, and things like that, which you cannot see with your naked eye. So that's even a higher standard of purity or whatever. So the eye has its limitations, and then to go beyond that, then we need instruments of some sort, either microscopes, telescopes, or electron microscopes, or electron telescopes, or whatever they have, in this Hubble telescope or whatever. And in this way, we can extend our sense to some degree, but even then, limitations there. So we cannot see across the universe. Even with the most advanced instruments, we can only see so far into space, indirectly, that's all. So automatically a limitation of senses. Pramad means inattention, which means we overlook things. It's not that we make a mistake, and it's not that we don't have the capacity to see it. It's before our eyes, we can very well see it, but somehow the mind wanders and we don't see it, or whatever. So that's another type of mistake we can make, overlooking things which should be seen, but we don't see. This is probably because of a combination of the senses with the mind, and even though our sense is looking at it, our mind is somewhere else, so we don't see it. And vipralipsa. This is not due to the senses so much as the mind. So, we don't have a Brahma, we don't have inattention, and we don't have a limitation of the sense, so we can perceive something properly, but then when we report it, we report something different because our mind wants to tell everybody something else. So it's called cheating. We report different results than what were observed. So this is, of course, not ethical, but unfortunately human beings get tempted or whatever, so they may often do this even in science. So, scientific misconduct. Because they're getting paid, they alter the results slightly or distort the results slightly to conform with what is expected of them in their experiments and their reports, so that they give a good report to that particular company they're hired by, so that they say that drug is safe or this is nice or whatever, when actually it's not that. So that's called cheating. So it takes place on a normal level of human observation. It also takes place even in science, because nobody is perfect. There is a report. I don't know if it's true. I think it's true. We have laws of science. Like some things are fixed, like the speed of light, and it's not supposed to change. It's a constant. and you use it in your formulas for different things, like atomic bombs, I think. E equals mc squared has got the speed of light in it. Yeah, so it should be constant. That's the theory. So the problem is, when scientists measure the speed of light, every time they do it, it's different. So what do? It doesn't conform, so you can do two things. One is, don't say anything. Two, we'll say, well, the people who took the measurements are faulty because it doesn't conform to our theoretical standard. You can say that. Or you can do another thing. You take the average of everybody's and come up with it, divide by a certain amount, and fudge it a little bit so you get almost the correct result. Yeah? So there's various ways you can adjust it, but actually, every time they take it, it's slightly different, the speed of light, every time they measure it, and they don't know why. So they can just discount it as being, somebody made a mistake or whatever. So that's some aspects of science are imprecise, even though we think they are precise. There are other examples also, of course, of direct cheating also in science itself. Okay. So that's only in the material realm, where we're trying to explain things in the material world. We do have mistakes or limitations of our senses. Now, if we try to understand and perceive what actually you cannot perceive with your senses, how can we come to the truth? God is not conceivable by our mind and is not perceivable by our senses. So how can we actually discuss this? Because all of our discussions take place upon our perceptions and the concepts we derive from our perceptions. Yeah? So that is why we cannot just say, well, prove God exists or something like that. It's impossible. Huh? So, we have different pramanas which are accepted. Though we are talking about Scripture, it does not mean that we ignore the other pramanas or other means of proof. Huh? So we have Shabda. This is the one we accept. This is authoritative scriptures. It literally means sound. Huh? So that is our final authority. We have others. Prataksha. These are the senses, the eye, the ear, the nose, whatever. Huh? We can observe things. Huh? And then we take the data that comes in with our senses, we store it in our mind, and we start making shortcut conclusions. This is called anuman. Inference. By observing material world, we draw certain conclusions, which may not be completely true, but are generally true. Like, where there is smoke, there is fire. Fire produces smoke. So if I see smoke, I can infer fire also is there. So if I see some smoke on a mountain, I can say, there must be a fire on the mountain. That's my inference, even though I don't see the fire. So that's use of logical propositions to come to a conclusion without actually seeing things. But it's based upon perceptions. First I see fire, I see smoke, and then I come to the conclusion where there's smoke, there's fire. So it's based on perception, but we can extend that to cases where we don't have perception, as in the case of the mountain and the fire. And that is not always true also, because there could be smoke on the mountain without a fire if the rain came along and put out the fire, and the smoke is there. So we just got smoke without a fire. It's also there. So then our inference is wrong. Or it may not be smoke at all, maybe a cloud. So that's another wrong perception. Brahm. We make a Brahm, and based on that we come to a faulty conclusion of our Anuman. So Anuman and Prataksha both are subject to fault in the material world. The other ones, which are listed by Jiva Goswami, actually are not all they can all be included in the other ones. Arsha, words of sages. They make statements that we accept them because great sages said upaman, similarity. Something is like something else. Artapati, conclusions from circumstances. I think one is that so-and-so is fat. We never see him eat in the daytime. therefore he must eat at night. That's artapati. It's the circumstances observation. But of course, this is a type of anuman actually. Above, absence of things. Sambhava, possibility or inclusion. If you have $100, there must be $1 in that. And something includes lesser amounts in it. Aitiya, traditional statements. And cheshta, using gestures to indicate something. For instance, in Bharatanatyam, they make little moves and you understand the story by the movements, the gestures. So that's another type. It's the secondary type of, proof or getting knowledge or whatever. So anyway, most of them could be categorized under these three. Sabda can include arsha and aitiya, prataksha is there, and anuma can include all these other things. So we basically have three types of proving things, of which two are faulty. And therefore we have to go to sabda for perfect knowledge, especially concerning Atma and Supreme Lord. So we accept the scripture as perfect knowledge. Now, everyone can challenge that. Oh, how do we know it's perfect? That's our faith. We accept certain things as perfect. That will also go for any religion. They will accept certain scriptures as perfect. The Muslims will accept the Quran as perfect. Why they accept it as perfect? Why? Can you prove it's perfect? No, you cannot. They accept it as perfect according to faith. So on faith, people accept certain things as their authority in religion, certain works. So if you accept the Vedic literature as authority, fine. Then we actually have a very good basis for getting knowledge. This is just to show, this is a statement that's often quoted from Mahabharata, to show what is achintya, or inconceivable. One cannot use material reasoning on those things which are inconceivable. Inconceivable refers to those things existing beyond Prakriti. So for spiritual matters, we cannot use our inference. It's inconceivable. So Brahma Sutras also supports this proposition. Shastra Yonatvat. The Lord cannot be known by reasoning, because the source of understanding of the Lord is Scripture, Upanishads, not reasoning.